So one of the biggest medieval mad lads ever in the history of ever has to be King John the Blind of Bohemia, who suffered quite the end at the Battle of Crecy in 1346. As the battle between the English and French began heating up and shifting towards the English's side, the Bohemians, who had sided with the French, advised their King John that his life was now in danger if he stayed, and told him to get out of there as fast as possible and fight another day. King John though was like mama didn't raise no pussy, and he wanted to go into the battle where the crash of arms and vigour of war was at its loudest and have a swing of his sword. Now if you hadn't guessed at this point, King John the Blind of Bohemia was actually blind and had been for the past 10 years, so he needed a bit of assistance to get into the melee, which is where two of his most loyal knights came in and agreed to take him where he and they would not return, as they tied all their horses together so they wouldn't lose him and charged into the battlefield. Although another chronicler does tell us it was less voluntarily from the knights and more of an order from John, as if they didn't do it, they would have been beheaded. King John's last order was that for his son, the future King Charles IV of Bohemia, to stay behind and be escorted off the field of battle, now being honoured as the new Bohemian king, as King John and his men galloped towards their end, with many of his other men following him in. While his end is told to us in heroic fashion in many of the tales, one other chronicler also suggests that he hit as many of his own troops as he did the enemy with his sword due to being blind, and we also know the gruesome reality of his end due to his skeletal remains. His heel had been sliced off, likely in an attempt to dismount him, and once he was dismounted, his elbow was also sliced, disabling his sword arm. A bladed weapon then pierced him while he was on his back through his left shoulder blade before being turned over, with the fatal blow being a dagger through his visor, in ironic circumstance and blinding him again if he wasn't already blinding him enough, but King John did get his wish to die with a sword in his hand. Popular legend tells us that the 16-year-old Edward the Black Prince, who was heir to the English throne at the Battle of Crecy, was so moved by John's death he decided to adopt his crest as his own, which was the 3 ostrich feathers with the saying Ich dien in German, and I've probably mispronounced that so apologies, which means I serve, which still stands today as the Prince of Wales crest. Of course, despite being such a great story, it seems to be just another myth, as there's no historical basis for it, as the first time that it's mentioned that it came from King John of Bohemia was on the Black Prince's death in 1376, 30 years after Crecy, and King John also had no such heraldry similar to this. It's believed the feathers belonged to his mother Philippa of Hainault, as they first started appearing in 1328 when she married his father Edward III. And the saying Ich dien is also likely to have come from his mother's Low Country heritage, or there is another alternative that it is Welsh for Ich dien, which sounds very similar and apparently means your man, which was a way to honour the Welsh archers at Crecy who done so much work on that battlefield.